Hello everyone, this will be a quick video today. We're doing a quick comparison about motors. On the left we have the LDARC, the XT1304 6200 kV. On the right we have the RCX 1304 5000 kV. One of the things that's easiest to compare is the lead length. You can tell on the RCX motor we get quite a bit more lead length there, almost double that we get on the LDARC. That's generally not going to be a problem for micros, but if you're thinking about running these motors on something that's you got more dimensions than we have in front of us, then it could be an issue for you. This is the Race 1 from Spintech, if you're not familiar with that. I'll link below that frame. This is also the Tomo Quads here on the right, and it's the Sidewinder. TPU printed machine. This review will be coming up soon. This one will take a bit longer because of the motor change that I'm going to go under. The LDARC motor weighs 8.39 grams. The RCX motor weighs 8.86 grams. I should take a moment to set this up because it could be confusing. On the LDARC motor, I'm running 3S because that is what's recommended at most. It's a 6200 kV, so higher kV than the 5000 kV RCX motor, but otherwise they should be nearly the same as far as size of motor. On the RCX motor, I'm running 4S, and I'm carrying a 4S. It's a 450 milliamp. In the case of the Race 1, I'm carrying a 550 milliamp battery. Battery weight can be one factor that you might want to measure into this, but I think the most important thing that I think we have to look at is just thrust. There are a couple other things that we'll look at after we look at the thrust, and I hope this information helps it be more clear as to what you might be buying when choosing these motors. I've lined up two clips that I thought my throttle time was just about the same. That's very difficult to measure, but I listened to them back to back and kind of would massage the clips back and forth to try to get the best measurement of how much I was on the throttle and for how long. The reason why I picked out these clips of flying over the house is I think the chimney gives a pretty good reference point as to what we have going on with our upward thrust. The RCX motor has an advantage that I would have to give it because it's running 4S. This is only running 3S, this is running 4S, and many of you will say throw out the comparison right there. When I bought the LDARC motor, I fully expected it to fly very, very similar to this on 4S, on 3S, but I found that it's just not the case. Now, I do plan to run this 4S. Whether I burn the motor up or not, we'll find out, but that's a longer term test because I don't want to do half a dozen or even a dozen flights and say, oh, it's fine on 4S with these props. Because on flight 13 or 14 or whatever, it could end up dying. That's why motor testing generally should take a little bit longer, because once you wear on the motor running that higher cell count or just rotations and wear on the motor itself, you may find that it fails. No one wants to buy even a $9 motor and then find out on flight 23 it dies because you're pushing it too hard. So we'll do that later on, but that'll be probably a month or two down the road before we find out what that is. And I also want to put this on a frame that I'm not testing, because if it flies out of the air from a high altitude, I don't want to break a frame that I have a planned review of. Let's take a look at those clips now. So the tune on the Race 1 is pretty rough. It's actually a little bit loose for my liking, and so that's something you may notice in the flight footage as well. I don't think that tune is going to be impacting the actual flight performance when we're just comparing that short clip of a quick full throttle punch and then a glide down. This is the point where you may want to just stop the video. You've reached your own conclusion. I will now give you mine. On 3S, I just don't think this motor is worth trying out. I think we're better off going with 1100 series motors on something like this. And you also notice that they have both mounting patterns on the motor. So if you're mounting it with the, I believe it's 9mm between the 1104 motor holes, then you have to cockeye the motor on the arm like you see here in front of you. So you've got the wires coming out, and then you've got to bring it back to the arm. I'm not a fan of that. It gives tree branches a little nook to get hung up in, and it makes it very difficult to get it out of a tree. So this motor hole pattern, while they do give you some different options for mounting with 1104 or 9mm, it is a little bit odd. I also found that if we're comparing these, the torque was less than expected on the low end for this. I kind of felt like it didn't respond real well on low end, nor did I feel like it got to the upper end very quickly either. So overall, the performance with this I don't think is great. It is a very smooth motor. I think if you're looking for a longer flight time, that would be a decent motor to look at, because it isn't very notchy. It doesn't seem to have very strong magnets. Compared to the RCX motor, it is slightly, and I mean very slightly, more notchy, so the magnets do seem to be stronger. But this motor's over a year old, and this one just came out. So I have to question the design a little bit on the LDARC motor, and here is a close-up look at the different height and size dimensions. Let's see. A look at the motor stems and how they're created. And both have C-clips on the bottom, although the RCX C-clip does seem to be more substantial. Hopefully you found that information useful, and you can use that information for future builds of your own. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please leave those in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.